We really need to pay parents for their expertise and put them in positions where they can speak to what they want to see in their community and for their child. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Childcare Channel and the Childcare Channel podcast. Our intention is for this to be a space where we come together to elevate the childcare industry through community, inspiration, and innovation that will ultimately serve the healthy development of children in the United States. In today's episode, we're going to be focusing on community advocacy and the current state of the childcare sector and what can be done towards its improvement. And to lead us in this conversation, we have our guest, Emmy O'Dwyer, with us today. Emmy has worked in the field of education for over 20 years as a teacher, early childhood and K-12 administrator, nonprofit executive director, and state government strategist. Her career in early childhood began when she opened the first new early learning center in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina wiped out 80% of programs. Emmy was astounded to learn two facts about the early learning sector. Number one, how critical childcare is for families and for rebuilding. And number two, how underfunded, undervalued, and decentralized the sector is. The combination of factors set Emmy into community advocacy. She went on to help address these pain points at the Louisiana Department of Education, where she was a director on the early childhood strategy team for 4 years. Emmy's leadership and accomplishments have resulted in her being awarded a 3-year Kellogg Fellowship focused on child-centered cities and racial healing, and also a New America Learning Sciences Exchange Fellowship focusing on collaboration across various sectors to reimagine early learning opportunities. Emmy loves wrestling with a sticky problem, learning from those closest to the work, and developing solutions that improve outcomes for all involved. In 2021, Emmy started her own consulting firm, Advancing Communities for Equity, to work at the intersection of systems and practitioners. And now, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Emmy to the channel. Emmy, welcome. It's such a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Yane. Thank you so much for having me and for that wonderful introduction.
No, my pleasure. You deserve it. If you're watching this, get ready because Emmy and I were talking behind the scenes just before we got started, and we're going to share information that's of extreme value when it comes to leadership development, when it comes to integrating the cultural sensitivities into the childcare space, and many other nuggets of wisdom and expertise that she has for us here today. So, Emmy, before we get started, those topics, I want to learn a little bit more about you. You know, who really is Emmy? You know, I know we were doing all these wonderful things now, but where do you come from? How did you get into this? How did you discover what I believe to be your passion now? Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So I am the first generation child of parents from Honduras and am living in New Orleans. Started off my career in education teaching middle school, 8th grade, which has a lot in common with 2-year-olds. They want boundaries, but also need freedom. I could go on and on. But my whole career changed when Hurricane Katrina hit our city. Had an 18-month-old and a 3-week-old at the time when the storm hit and evacuated with my family. And my newborn son, we weren't able to go to any well visits for several months because we were evacuated. But I'd noticed some things about him that were a little bit concerning to me. So when we came home, we saw our doctor and realized that he had been born with some significant differences that would impact his learning for his entire life. And so my whole life really shifted at that moment. How could I earn income, which we needed to earn income, but also be close to my baby during this time as we meet with multiple therapists every day? And I've learned that this is not an uncommon story in the childcare field. Many of our incredible directors across the country start their own careers in early childhood because of their own children or even having children with disabilities who need a little bit more care. And so childcare seemed like a job. I felt like, okay, I can do this. I'm a certified teacher. I've gone to school in education and I thought I was overqualified, which I laugh at now because I was so underqualified because it's such a broken challenge system.
Mm.
It's not adequately funded. It relies on, what parents are able to pay to inform quality, to try to pay teachers as much as you can. And those benefits are never quite enough. And and it was so critical for my baby at this time to have a high quality, wonderful teacher in that setting. And so it really sparked in me this challenge of why are we not being proactive in our education systems? As an eighth grade teacher, I can't tell you how many students I taught to read who were 13 years old. I
Wow.
was always working on the back end of the problem with very capable, wonderful, talented students. How can we set this education on firm foundation so that children really flourish? And I'm such an optimist and such a sort of positive thinker. Early childhood really spoke to that in me, that if we could get this right at the beginning, we could set children up for a really positive life of success and accomplishment, which I'm proud to say that my son, who's now 17, is just, so successful in everything he touches. And I think it's because of that early intervention and that focus we were able to give him. And every child deserves every opportunity
Mm.
from their youngest age. So that just sort of changed my life. And I feel grateful that I was able to, invest in my own leadership to get to the point where I could take a job like at the State Department so that we could together focus on these pain points in childcare and try to strengthen that system and make that system better. So I know I kind of dipped into my professional career. I'm now the mother of 3 teenagers. I love costuming for Mardi Gras and cooking and traveling, and I'm very excited about early childhood and love what I get to do. So excited to share that today.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, we're gonna go deep into actually this topic of reimagining childcare in a moment. But before that, and I want to ask you, and you're welcome to decline to answer to this, but I feel like it could be an opportunity for some families who have children who were born with disabilities to get hope and be inspired, because I'm so happy to hear your son is doing great. But perhaps at the beginning, when he was 3 weeks old, you weren't so sure that that was going to be the outcome. So would you mind sharing what kind of
Sure.
challenge he had and
Mhm.
what you did to help him through it?
Yeah. So thank you for asking that question because I do feel like, educate, it's so hard to find information
Mhm.
sometimes as parents. We're learning, right? And so when Elliot was really young, I noticed that his head seemed a little bit smaller than other children or than my own children, my own daughter at the time, what that she had appeared to be at birth. And I also noticed that he was fisting one of his hands more than, kids are they kind of clenched up when they're little, they're kind of tight, but he seemed a little bit like his hand was kind of tight. He was also crying a lot, but we were in the middle of trauma. We were living with people we didn't know. We were evacuated from a storm. We had a newborn. So, I mean, all of us were very stressed. We were watching TV all the time, trying to see what had happened. So I couldn't tell if that was more it's a reaction to our situation. There were very subtle signs. So my pediatrician referred us for an MRI, which is where we learned that he had some differences in his brain. He was born with cytomegalovirus, which is actually the most common form of, or the most common causer of birth defects in the United States, for which there's now some policy efforts to have some vaccines for it because many parents don't know about it. And it's very common in education environments where there are lots of children, and it can be passed from a pregnant woman to their baby. If they've never had it before and they get it for the first time with the baby, it can be very detrimental and even deadly to an infant. But the good news is that early intervention services can really change the trajectory of a child's life, regardless of, sometimes of what their, or disability might be. Elliot was born with, hearing loss in one ear, we later learned, because he failed that first hearing screen and we weren't able to go back for our second round for a hearing screen until later. He has some issues with his eyes, which now he's got 20/20 vision after many eye surgeries. So we've figured that out. He's got ADHD, his brain is different. So he's got some learning disabilities, but he is the most social and happy and active child. And he's going to have a big life, and we're always talking with him about what his big life is going to include. And so we're really grateful for those early intervention services. I should say that something else that I'm passionate about is the role that childcare centers play regarding early intervention, because when parents aren't around multiple children and have never had a child before, or maybe are working 2 or 3 jobs, they might not recognize that a child is not meeting those milestones. But early childhood educators in that group setting who see, a room full of 18-month-olds, or a room full of 3-week-old, or, however old these babies are, they can really see relative to their peers when a child might not be doing things that they should be doing. So I really always want to implore childcare providers to have structures in their center so that every child is screened twice a year, at least. The Head Start standards say 3 times a year, and to really look across that child's development, because these things, because of the neuroplasticity of the brain, we have the opportunity, if we're early for early intervention, to really change how those brains are formed with therapies and with supports. And so that's a critical role that we can play for every family.
Congratulations to you as well as a mom and main party with, I'm sure, his father, responsible for Elliot's development. You must have done a great job there as well to be able to support him. So
it takes a village. It really it opens you up at a very early age to recognize that you don't have all the answers and that you really need a team of people who really care. And we're grateful to Elliot's early childhood teachers who, Elliot really didn't need me to be with him at work every day. He really needed the teacher who's in the room with him to include him in the activities with his peers, to really integrate the therapists who were coming in to play with all the kids and make it a very inclusive experience. And so there are a lot of people who have played into his success, and I'm grateful.
That's amazing. And with the main sponsor of the channel, which is One Core Solution, the CEO, his name is Simon, and he's always saying childcare is the backbone of the U.S. economy. And within that backbone, you have the teachers, and the teachers, like you just very well mentioned, are so important in the development of the children, especially because the children spend, I would say, probably most of the time with the teachers, even sometimes more than with their own parents. And so it's so important that we are able as a society to support those teachers as well, right? Which I know it's part of what we were talking about earlier with this conversation of reimagining the way that childcare is structured in the United States. So, Emmy, tell us, when it comes to reimagining the way that we're going about childcare, what are some of your observations and suggestions as to how we can move the industry forward in these modern times?
I really think having a user-centered approach is critical in building up not only childcare, but also our systems that serve families. Very often we treat parents more like the subjects of our work than the real agents that they are. Agents with expertise and knowledge about their children and about what best meets their needs. If we were developing a product, we would do a lot of study, we would have some focus groups, we would put our product out on the shelf, and we would track how well it was doing and if it was exactly what people wanted and were craving. And if it wasn't successful, we would go back to the drawing board and we would plan differently. We would think about, where we were putting this thing and how it looked and how we were marketing it and all of those things. And I feel like childcare is one of those things where we should be seeking parents' expertise and input in designing that system. And, everything that touches families should be designed in that way. Home visiting programs should be designed that way. Women, infant, and children subsidies, food stamps. How do we integrate these systems to best meet the needs of families? Because that's who they're designed for. And very often we're developing these things because of what we see others doing or what we think we should do, instead of asking parents who are the true experts and the ultimate stakeholders in their children's success. No one's going to care about that child more than those parents, as much as we love them. How do we really engage them to develop this system beyond bake sales and events, which are fun ways to connect, but not around decision-making and choice, which is where parents have lots of opinions and will really value you for asking and for responding.
That's amazing. And that's such a great point that you bring also about the integration of the systems that we have on a, let's say, governmental level, right? From, like you said, the food stamps to every other area supporting families. How do you see the evolution of this? What can be done to get these systems to be more integrated? Is there anything that our viewers can do?
I think one thing that we can do is in our own little ecosystems, we can really empower parents instead of feeling sort of frustrated or sometimes annoyed by how those communications look, but really positioning parents in a place where we can easily ask their opinion and guidance and leadership. And so in a center, that might be an advisory board that does more than plan cute events or fun activities. At a systems level, it can be empowering a group of parents that represent the community to really have a say in how money is being spent and how decisions are being made. Because I think the challenge comes when policy is being made 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, when parents are at work. So we really need to pay parents for their expertise and put them in positions where they can speak to what they want to see in their community and for their child.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you for that. And now that we're talking about the educators and the impact that they have, I know that leadership development is a huge area of focus for you. And I know that when you were doing the Kellogg Fellowship, there was a pivotal moment in there where somebody asked you a question you never really thought about. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So one of the benefits we had of the first year of that fellowship was there was a stipend for our own professional development. We would get some money that we could decide to do with it whatever we wanted, whether it was to take trumpet lessons or to invest in some particular training. And at the time, I was pivoting from working at a child care center to working at a systems level. And I was asked how I would want to spend that money. What is it that you need? What is it that you want to learn? Or, what would be helpful to you in your leadership journey? And I was like a deer in the headlights. I did not know how to answer that question. I really spent several years trying different things. Oh, maybe it's yoga and maybe it's getting a massage, regular massage therapy for self-care. I was just so out of touch with myself. I had spent so many years serving others, supporting others from my own family and also in my work. I didn't know how to think about myself. So I really think that my career took a pivot in a positive direction when I was able to really engage myself. First of all, to recognize that I was worthy of the time and attention of thinking about what it is that I need as a leader, and that ultimately that would have great results for my family and all the people that I touched through my work. And that's how I had to legitimize it for myself, right? Is that it's an investment. It's still an investment in everyone else. If I am more relaxed, if I am happier, if I have more support, I will be better able to do this work. And I also recognized that there was nothing that was different from me and anyone else in this very prestigious fellowship, that I was kind of intimidated by my peers and felt like a bit of an imposter, and realized that there was nothing different from any of them and from me, that I was worthy of being in that space. I was worthy of that time and investment. And with that investment, I could also accomplish all the things that I dream of. And I just needed to believe that and make that investment. So I want to really push all the childcare directors out there to put yourself on your own agenda and on your own to-do list and really spend some time with that question. There is going to be a lot of federal money flowing for workforce and leadership development with the preschool development grant that states are going to be implementing. And I think there's going to be lots of conversations about workforce and leadership development. So there may be formal opportunities, but if there aren't, you need to make that space for yourself and figure out what it is that gives you joy and also deepens your own learning. You'll always reap the benefits of it.
Wow. This is gold. If you're listening to this, I mean, Emmy has shared about these programs that are going to be in place soon, Emmy, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah. So be on the lookout for these programs. Make sure that you find out what they are and take advantage if you can, because the best investment we can all make, that you can make, that we can make, is in ourselves. Because I mean, look at Emmy. She took that leap. She did the fellowship. She had to come to face with these questions about, who she was, what she needed. And she needed to believe that she was deserving of it. And then after she did that, look at everything and all the impact, Emmy, that you've been able to have so far. And then some, where you're headed right now. So that could be you. That could be you listening to this. You have it in you, but community is so important, right? To somebody to be able to tell you, no, 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 come on, what do you want? Yes, you can. Absolutely. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that, Emmy. So, okay. I know that one of your big focus is on community engagement and particularly inclusion. So can you talk to us a little bit about that particular area?
So, one of the first projects that I got when I started my consulting firm was with Jefferson Ready Start Network, where an incredible leader, Dr. Cerintha Strickland, was really wondering why she wasn't seeing Latino children represented in the early childhood system. As Jefferson Parish Schools has 15,000 Latino children in their pre-K to 12 system, but there were less than 1,000 of those children represented in early care and education. And so we really set out to study and think about why this might be. And this was the first time I was really working at the intersection of my own identity of like my passion for early childhood and my identity as a Latina woman in New Orleans. New Orleans tends to think and has tended to think in very black and white terms in terms of culture and race. And so it really helped me tap into my own gratitude for my parents and their hard work to create every opportunity for my brother and myself in coming to this country. And knowing what I know about the power of a quality early childhood education, why wouldn't we want to extend those benefits to those children who, without an early childhood education are going to have to navigate schools without understanding the language or how, the routines that happen in a group care environment, the culture of play and integrating with their peers. We're just making things a little bit harder for them. And so we have really been focused on how to increase representation of teachers in our community because we recognize that when a family can't go into a childcare center and see someone who looks like them or can speak in their own native language about the nuanced problems that we help parents with in a childcare setting, it's not really an environment that they're going to want to participate in. How do we cultivate Latina leaders, Latina and Latino? Of course, we have lots of women in our field, but everyone is welcome. How do we cultivate these leaders at every level, from childcare director to trainers and coaches, to really help best support these families and so that they can see themselves and ultimately their children benefit from being in that setting? And if formal childcare is not interesting to them, or if it seems like culturally not responsive to their needs, how do we lean into our family childcare providers and support them to have high quality environments, to have access to the food program so that those children are well fed and nourished? How do we provide them with resources so that those children are learning at the same level or beyond any level we can imagine wherever they are? And so I really have enjoyed that work tremendously. It has spoken new passion into my work. I'm considering opening businesses that help us to really focus on it differently because there's just a gap that no one is addressing and just critical to the future of our country, which will be, more and more Latino as the years. And so we want to best support our community and our economy by investing in these children.
Absolutely. And, I love the fact that you're focusing on that since now because all children should have equal opportunity. And the language, it is a factor, especially the parents when they don't understand that a language other than their own. Like you said, the nuances, that makes a big difference. It's not a small thing. So I love that you're being focused on that. And in fact, we're seeing the influence and the importance of also including the Latino community. We see it in the media. Since I'm more in the media, we now have companies like channels, TV channels that are really investing in producing content for the Spanish speaking population in the United States. So it's becoming more and more important. So I'm so glad that you're doing that. We could be talking here for hours. I think I'm going to have a second interview with you to go deeper on some of these things. We're getting to the end here for today. Now, where can people find you if they have questions or anything?
Sure. So my website is ACE for us, ACEFORUS.com. That's Advancing Communities for Equity is what the ACE stands for. I'm also on LinkedIn. Friend me. I'd love to follow your story and learn from you. I would say that being a provider and staying close with providers is what's helped me develop the solutions at the systems level. And so I always want to be connected to that work. It's the hardest job I ever had. For all the fancy titles that you said in my introductions, there was no more rewarding but challenging work. And so I hope folks do reach out. I'd love to get to know you all.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emmy. And now to close the interview, we like to play a little game we call 3 in a Beat. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. And number 1, what was your favorite toy growing up?
Ooh, I think it was the see and say. Something really satisfying about playing the string and having that little arrow point at the different animals.
I love it. I love it. Okay. I know you're a big learner. So who's your favorite person to learn from?
Yeah. I would say right now I'm kind of following Gary V.
I love Gary V.
He's just
he's
like
got
an
this
emotional.
fun.
I appreciate the emotional intelligence.
Yeah, absolutely. I love his V Friends series. I support it 100%. Amazing. Okay. And then last but not least, what is or what has been the most influential book in your life?
Hmm. Oh, this one is really difficult for me as an English teacher. I don't know. I feel like what's coming up for me is Langston Hughes and his poems. I feel like he was always writing about being on the outside, which resonated with me as a young person.
Wow, I love it. Emmy, thank you so much. Any last words for our viewers before we could disconnect for the day?
Last words are thank you. The work that you do has so much value. And if you don't realize it, you're a change maker. You are transforming lives and you are so much more valued than I think you would ever know.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Emmy. And you here watching. If you like this interview, please do share it. And it would be also very helpful if you subscribe to our channel so that we can have more episodes like this and really together have a community that's working closely to impact the childcare space for the better. Emmy, thank you once again, and will see you on the next episode.